Well, all right. Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Jason Levine, and it's a pleasure to be simulcasting to you today on YouTube, Behance, Twitter Periscope, and Adobe Facebook as well. Great to see you all. Thank you so much for joining. So today's live stream is a little bit different and a bit special because today I'm going to be joined by two members of the Premiere Pro engineering team. We're going to be talking about performance and stability and actually give you not only an inside listen about the things that we've been doing, but this is an open community Q&A, your opportunity to engage directly with two of our most esteemed Premiere Pro team members and to really ask those questions and get them answered and start some conversations. Also, we're going to provide some additional links along the way. We've got additional Adobe people in the chats here to give you links to some of the resources about some of the changes we've been making. So lots of stuff to cover. We hope to be, hope we're going to see a lot of engagement in here. As always, feel free to chat and tell us where you're coming from. I see we've got Bishara Robert coming in. How's it going? Al Hassan. All right. Nice to see you. All right. Come on. Great to see you as well. All right. Oh, we've got people coming from all over the place. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce Marjorie Sachs and Matt Christensen from the Premiere Pro engineering team. How are you both?
Great. Thanks, Jason. How are you?
Great. Well, again, I know we've got a lot of stuff we wanted to cover, and I thought it would be nice just to personalize the live stream today. And maybe Marjorie, we kind of start with you and just give everyone a little bit of your background, kind of how you got to Adobe and kind of where you started in video and in this space.
Sure. So my background is I used to be an assistant editor in a company called Rock, Paper, Scissors for like 8 years. And I joined Adobe as a quality engineer 2 years ago. But before that, I was one of the Premiere team's first Hollywood engagements at Rock, Paper, Scissors. So when I got into Premiere, I don't think like multicam hadn't been developed yet. So it was pretty, it's come a long ways. And I would work with the engineering team, and I had literally a team of like 3 engineers sitting outside of the edit bay, just, writing code and updating it and giving me patches on the fly, and just giving me these fixes. And the project went, I think it was a Toyota commercial we were doing. It was film, it was just all these different variables involved. And the client never once knew that we were on like beta software. It was a very great experience. So over the course of many years, I had just this really hands-on experience with the engineers over at Adobe, and I decided to join a couple of years ago, and it's been great to work on the other end and support the customers. Nice. So if I'm not doing working on bug fixes or finding bugs in the software, I do a lot of like workflow consultation with different big Hollywood customers here.
Awesome, and that's something that we like to emphasize a lot too, which is people always think it's hard to showcase all of the different avenues and all the different places that we are in terms of Hollywood, and then of course you've got sort of YouTube and all these other different places, but they all sort of come together, and the team is involved in all of this. But we also have specialties, and it's so wonderful to have you on the team. And I know it's really great to have you here today. Matt, how about a little bit about you? Tell us about yourself and how you got started here and what got you to Adobe.
Yeah, I come actually from Nebraska, and I came out to LA to pursue a film degree and got into that and fell in love with post-production. So for a few years in LA, I was working as an assistant editor, things like commercials and music videos, and had to know every NLE out there with like the back of my hand and support it with all the different editors that I might be working with. And then I moved into online editing and color grading and found that to be a real passion of mine. So I love getting to do that work. And then sort of like Marjorie, I always liked Premiere and liked sort of the vibe that I heard from Adobe. And when I found out there's a position open to kind of also work with the software side of things, I have a real passion for how interfaces should work, how software should work. And so I get to channel that every day into making Premiere a better product. So that's kind of my background.
Nice. All right. Well, I thought we would start with kind of one of the most recent changes in the way that we are developing and delivering Premiere. And for many, if not all of you watching, you probably noticed that since April, I guess, is April when we started this, or May, there's just been a lot more releases, and they've been more frequent, and they seem to be pretty well timed. And this is a pretty fundamental change to the way that we're kind of creating the software and delivering the software. And I thought maybe, Marjorie, you could kind of talk to what it means to have these smaller but more frequent releases.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, one of the biggest changes is we're doing these smaller, more frequent releases. And I think that, on one hand, it seems more counterintuitive, but it really helps us be able to develop faster with improved stability, and just get these releases out quicker and get the feedback from the general public. And we've introduced like a system compatibility report which in Premiere. So a lot of times when you go, you're having performance issues, and you before you even go and like is it my computer? Do I need to get a new computer? Oftentimes it's just a simple driver update that can save you so much time and improve your performance without having to upgrade the machine. So we kind of just, when you launch Premiere, we will basically scan your system and see if you need that. So
Yeah. And so now, I mean, obviously, as rasters continue to grow, and of course, we're seeing more and more hardware and, having to support all of this different hardware and formats. And I know, we're going to talk a little bit about that in terms of performance with like ProRes RAW and some of the new additions. But how are we seeing internally, again, with all of these changes, are we seeing that are there fewer reports into sort of QE and support about like these hardware issues because of how we're scanning things and evaluating things now?
Yeah,
or is it about the same?
With the analytics and all the system reports that we're getting, it's been very beneficial for people. So it is cutting back on like all of these, these bugs or performance issues that they were previously having.
Yeah, and I
the
think
nice
it's
thing
one
about that too is that it's been, the system compatibility report was part of a greater collaboration with some of the GPU driver makers
Right.
like Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA, where we need to
Right.
partner with them and say, okay, let's figure out why this is happening. This is what we're seeing from our users. This is what that report is showing, and that's been really helpful too.
Yeah. And I know because, and actually I'm reading through all the different questions here. You're getting a lot of love in the chats, by the way. We've got, you even got Patrick Palmer, one of our Premiere Pro product managers over in Germany, saying hello. And we will indeed get to this.
We can't take any questions from him though.
No questions from Patrick. Sorry, Patrick. No. But just in terms of when people do have issues, and this is something which I just wanted to bring up because it happened to someone during one of my streams the other day, which is, if you get that, send report to Adobe, we actually want people to send that, right? If you have some kind of a crash or an issue like that, actually really helps us. I know I'm one of the people who's been guilty in the past. Click through it, don't even read through it. But if you get that, it really does help us. And I know we're going to get to the beta later too. But again, we now have this, users have a direct connection to the engineers in a way that they've never had before. So any detail and data that they can give us, right? We want it. We want to know if you're having crashes. We want to know if there's problems, because this is what's enabling us to fix it across, so many different configurations and systems, and just make the overall experience better.
Yeah, some crashes are sort of one-off flukes depending on your specific system. And so getting that sent in is still good in case we ever need to look at it. But a lot of crashes, you aren't the only person having them, and it's actually a broader issue. And so the more that gets sent in, the easier it is for us to identify those. And, we have a backend system that sees all the incoming crash reports, collects them into little buckets for us, and says, okay, we have so many people hitting this, the same piece of code looks to be the problem. And that directly translates into an issue that our team tracks and logs and can try and reproduce. And so even a little bit of text, if you can take a second and type in crash while I was doing X, right?
Right.
Our team sees that, and it can make it so much easier sometimes to get to the bottom of what's happening.
It's so awesome. Now, I know, again, I don't want to spoil it because we're going to get to beta in a little bit, but maybe we could segue, Matt, into a little bit about performance, because I see there's already some questions coming around NVIDIA cards and drivers, like Marjorie was just mentioned. And I know one of the first things that, again, I think this was around April or May, GPU accelerated encoding on Windows, right? So maybe you could talk to some of these things. ProRes playback as well. I think you had a chart for that. ProRes RAW. A lot of these questions have been coming up, and still some of these things are somewhat unknown. I mean, I know we had our launch in June where we released a couple of new things. Marjorie's going to potentially show scene edit detection a little bit later, but maybe we could talk to like the GPU accelerated encoding stuff that we've been doing, and ProRes playback as well.
The thing I want to say at the start that really helps kind of clarify what happens with hardware acceleration, because it can seem really confusing even to us as we're tracking it internally. But if you break it down, any video editor, not even just Premiere, there's basically 3 ways you can use the GPU hardware. You're either decoding a certain format if it's able to be decoded. you are rendering a frame, which means like applying effects, color, transforms, all that kind of stuff, or you're encoding it, which is when you export, right? And so what you were specifically talking about there, what we announced recently was GPU hardware accelerated encoding on Windows. And so the hardware acceleration encoding on GPU is when you're exporting to H.264 or H.265, also known as ABC or HEVC. And because modern GPUs and systems have dedicated circuitry on their chips to lightning quickly process those frames, that's basically what we've added support for on Windows. So now you can take full power of the hardware you may have in your modern GPU, and instead of waiting on the CPU to do the sort of math in its head, it just goes through a very efficient pipeline on the GPU. So that can lead to massive improvements on your export times.
Nice. And this is, again, something as we've seen over the last couple of years in Premiere Pro, not only just with effects, but we're seeing a lot more adoption of the GPU for various processes to, again, kind of take it off the CPU and just keep people in that editing space and not having to waste time. And I know after we released that for Windows, there were dozens of unsolicited tweets and Facebook posts about, holy expletive, like it's significantly faster and better than it ever was before. I mean, that wasn't actually marketing hype. It's like, no, it's pretty significant, and we're really doing something special here with the export.
Yeah, it is one of those big fundamental tech shifts, like going from a spinning hard drive to a solid state, like going from CPU processing to GPU encoding is one of those big leaps that you'll notice.
Nice. Okay, now again, now we were talking about I wanted to mention ProRes RAW because this was something too which we kind of sneaked in there as a supported format, and it was something which you're hearing a lot of buzz about sort of in the beginning of the year, pre all the COVID chaos. I thought maybe you could talk to that a little bit too, and also the fact that still I think a lot of people are unaware that we have just in general ProRes support for import and export, traditional ProRes on both Mac and Windows. That was something we've added quite some time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I even recently got a question about that, like, how do I do it on Windows? They didn't even realize, like, oh, it's already in there. You know, it's available.
In the menu, yeah.
Yeah, it's in the menu, right?
Yeah, there's actually been a number of improvements we can kind of talk about in one group with ProRes. Adding ProRes RAW has been a huge request as more and more recorders, and I'm not sure if even maybe a camera or two will support it now. So that's supported natively in Premiere. We've also been working with Apple directly to make sure our ProRes decode and encode are as fast and in performance as they can be, because we see a lot of, H.264 is probably our biggest format, but ProRes is right up there, and
right.
it's key to a lot of professional workflows. So we've also been working on things like supporting the Afterburner card in the new Mac Pro, which is dedicated to, really tripling down on performance with ProRes. And we've also done specific work that's available to check out in the beta now around multicam performance with ProRes. So specifically when you're using ProRes in a multi-camera kind of setup, the performance is greatly improved too in the terms of the number of streams you can play back without dropping any frames.
Right. Nice. So Gerald Goldman asked this question, and this is something which, I think is one of those that many of us can identify with. So some people, and I've seen this report on some of my streams, seeing issues with like older Macs and hardware encoding, or just older hardware in general. And I know we have some new. We have a new page with our sort of system requirements. I don't know if Eric, if you're watching, if you want to post that in the chat, or if Marjorie, maybe one of you could pull that up briefly.
Yeah, I can grab
share that. But maybe you could talk to that a little bit, because I'm the first to say, and it's funny, as I sit here and I often get a lot of questions like, well, your performance when you're doing stuff, it seems really slick, and what's your system? And it's like, well, it's a 3-year-old iMac 5K. It's got a maxed out video card. It's like 8 gigs. It's got a 2 terabyte SSD, and it's still an i7, I think. But again, it's already 3 years old. So, and technology, that's not super new.
Yeah.
It's certainly not the most powerful. And yet there's people with the same hardware that are having not that kind of performance. So maybe you could talk to a little bit about that and kind of what things people can be aware of.
Yeah, part of what makes hardware acceleration, encoding or decoding or even rendering so kind of difficult to understand is there's maybe like 10 variables that can each fan out into what feels like an infinite combination of, well, if this, then yes, and if this, then no.
Right.
And what I would say to that is generally, if your system supports hardware encoding, which which most modern Macs do to some degree.
Right.
The common ways they can still trip you up if you're not seeing the performance you expect is the part of the nature of it being a hardware accelerated encoding is that it only knows how to process certain types of H.264, right? Whether maybe it's only 8-bit and not 10-bit, or if it's 420 subsampling instead of 422 or 444.
Right.
And that's because that's just at the time that that chip was made, that's the circuits that were put in there. And so if you do then use one of those H.264 flavors that isn't supported, it has to fall back to CPU rendering. And so
Right.
most often that's the case. You might be having a 4 or 5, 6-year-old Mac that can do some hardware accelerated decoding for more basic H.264, but if you give it a modern drone, 10-bit H.265 footage, it may not have any idea how to hardware decode that, and then it'll just fall back to software performance. So that's probably the biggest issue we see.
Okay, that makes sense. So just on that now, because again, I think one of the other things that I think that we've done, partly with not only having these more frequent releases, but this was also something we introduced back in April, which is the public beta for all for our video applications. And more of the Adobe apps now are moving into this. And Marjorie, I know we wanted to talk about this, and I was hoping maybe you could show a little bit of that, both in the Adobe Creative Cloud desktop, and then kind of show maybe some of the things that we've done in the app now to not only let people know, like, hey, well, first and foremost, that you can run these betas side by side with the release versions. There's no harm done there. But also ways that now you can actually submit feedback right away, submit feature requests, see what's been updated, and kind of just reveal to everybody kind of this new experience in this new beta world. We're not asking you to sign on and dedicate 10 hours of time a week. I mean, I think that's traditionally how a lot of people think about working with beta, but this is very new and very different.
So yeah, like you mentioned, our ongoing commitment to improve the performance and stability, we've devoted like a significant amount of time to testing. And by introducing this public beta, it allows us to speed up the process and ensure like that we're focused on the right areas and not kind of getting sidetracked of what exactly matters most to our users. And we update it really frequently, sometimes even daily. And I can go and show you the whole process of it, but it's very simple. Any person who has a Creative Cloud, a membership, has access to these public betas. And it really helps us test on a wider configuration because everyone has different specs and hardware that they're using.
Sure.
So let me go ahead and I will share my screen with you. Yeah. And I can give you a little run through of that.
Okay, awesome. And while we're waiting again, hello, Joe Karkour from Dubai. Great to see you. Mohammed from South Africa. I see a lot of Adobe employees. Hello, Todd Reeder. Ivo, Eric's back in here. Hawks. Sue Skidmore, what's up? A lot of Adobe people in here. We enjoy every day. Nice to see you.
Hey there.
Hey, all right.
So I've launched the, here's the beta version of Premiere. You can have both the beta and public release running concurrently. There are different icons down in your dock, so you don't get confused. Right. But in the public and up here in the menu, it says beta. So the neat part about the beta is we have what's new in beta up here in the upper right-hand corner. And every time you install a new version, I'm all up to date because I just installed this earlier today, but we will tell you all the changes that we're working on. So, oops. Here we're doing a lot of work in development for the HDR workflows. And we'll just and we also include just the different features we're working on. Scene edit detection is something that we're using more automation, and it's going to save everyone so much time. I can demo that for you in a couple minutes. Yeah. So this goes and shows everything that we're working on, and we also include down at the bottom bug fixes that have been integrated into this version. And so say you're using this beta build and you come across a bug and you want to log it. Up here, you can provide us feedback and you can submit a bug report. You can do a feature request, or you can visit the beta community. So if we go and write a bug report, it will copy all of your system specs and post it into this message. And then if you just give us a brief description and kind of steps to repro that, it's incredibly helpful for our team. And any crash logs that you have, a project file if you're able to share. We don't need any of the media. A lot of times we can find a lot of things without having clips online. So that's very helpful. And like I mentioned, we are updating these pretty much daily.
And I was wondering if you could zoom back in over there, because one of the other ones that you said was the submitting the feature request. So this used to be, I mean, and you can still do it via Adobe Voice. I'm always sending people to Adobe Voice. And of course, we have the kind of traditional wish form. But this is now right in the beta, right? It's right there.
Yeah.
So you don't have to think about where to go. It's like, hey, this should be a feture request. You can now access this right from it. This to me is like one of the most awesome new additions.
We're just trying to make it as easy as possible. Like have you stay in the program so you don't need to launch the web browser to do this, or it's helpful. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to pull this up just for a moment of little bliss here. So Rick Prescott AZ is saying the 2020 updates to Premiere have made it way more stable and fast. Thanks for the improvements. Thank you, Rick, for the comment. We love hearing that. Love seeing that stuff. Margaret Purvis is saying, why can't we have a light gray mode? Actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, Margaret, because so we do have lighter gray. In fact, if you want to show that, Marjorie, just to show how you can change the colors. But I did have someone on a recent stream even ask, it doesn't seem to go as light as it once did. And I guess that's probably true. It's hard for me to remember. Do you have it on the lightest? You have it on the darkest.
I have it on the darkest.
Yeah, okay. So it doesn't go as light as it once did. Yeah.
I wonder if it's because the new dark mode on maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I haven't.
I can actually speak to that a little bit.
Yeah.
I've talked to our UI designer about that. It used to go almost
white. Yeah.
You could go the full spectrum. And part of it is just that increases the complexity for the designers and the testers, because we have to check at each level. Even if you look at Premiere right now on Marjorie's screen, there's maybe like 8 or 9 different grays on here, right? Whether something is selected, if it's in different, even in the timeline, the tracks are a little bit lighter than where there's no tracks. And so for each point on that grayscale, you then have to adjust all of these consecutively, and it's really hard to make everything look good. And we looked at the usage for most of it, and most people weren't running it at full white. That isn't how most video professionals like to work. So by limiting that gray, it means we can make sure that the colors are easier to read at every level.
Nice, makes sense. It's funny because now I'm seeing, especially as we're moving towards Virtual Adobe Max, which is coming in October. If you haven't registered already, it's free to all for anyone in the world. As we're demoing and creating demos and shifting between applications, one of the things we've actively had to do, particularly for me, is adjust the brightness and the color of the apps, because now they're really starting to look very similar by intentionally speaking, right? So just so that people can be fully aware, hey, we're in Premiere, we're in After Effects, we're in Rush, I'm constantly changing the colors. Although when I'm by myself, indeed, they're all just in the darkest mode possible. And I still really love that. Although it's funny, I'm seeing more and more designers kind of move back to a lighter UI and more traditional graphic design, which is kind of fun too. Dave Simons just joined as well. Nice. And he wants to say, just to remind everybody, don't forget to hit paste when entering your bug description. That gives us your machine specs and app version. So yeah, David and I had the pleasure of kind of showcasing, and actually that's perfect, David, because I was going to just segue to Marjorie. Could you just show in the CC desktop where to access the beta apps?
Thank you for reminding me. So if you go into Creative Cloud Desktop, down here in the categories, we have these beta apps, and in here you have every program that's available for beta. So we have Premiere, After Effects, Media Encoder, Illustrator, and Character Animator, and Audition. And you simply just click install. If you want to find out different versions, other versions, you can click other versions here, and we'll give you a list of the previous releases for that. But you just click update, we'll install it in the background, and then again, you can have them running simultaneously.
Right. And this is so cool because, again, now many of you, if you're motion graphics artists or working with After Effects, you probably saw that in June. I'm forgetting now. Months and days have just blended time. Some time ago, we made RotoBrush 2 available as part of the beta. So there's been a lot of buzz around this. In fact, I've seen there's already some questions right now around RotoBrush 2. But again, this is the thing. Like, now you can really see and impact the development of these features as we're working on them. Similarly with the things that we're doing in Premiere. I mean, scene edit detection in and of itself is one of those kind of life-saving things that is so awesome and so useful across so many potential user bases. We'd love to hear and get feedback on different configurations and different systems and different workflows and different types of editing to see how these things are really impacting our users, right? So I really want to emphasize to anyone out there, and I'm the first to say it, you know, having done beta testing years ago where it was like, yeah, I just remember there was like a contract, a digital one, but you know, you had to do a certain amount of time. You had to put in your time before you got your free donut, whatever it was or something. There's none of that now. We wanted to make this really simple and accessible. We want to give you access, and we want to give you more direct access to the people making this stuff so they can figure out the best way to deliver the best product possible. And while that may sound like a lot of marketing, and it is, it's also true. And that's why we're doing this stream today. All right.
I want to add to that, Jason. It is
Yeah.
true. Like, people on our team, including myself, make it a point to, you know, multiple times a week, go check out the beta forum. Especially if you are working on one of the features that is new to beta, you're probably checking it every day to get that
Right.
feedback.
Right.
It's valuable to users to be able to input that kind of stuff, but it's super valuable to us to get that direct feedback as well. So we love it.
And
Yeah.
every morning, you know, on our team, we have a bug review that we look at everything that's been submitted over the course, you know, just within days. So we're really on top of that.
Yeah. I mean, think about that. We've got several hundred users watching live right now. You really have access to the team. I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, part of just having this stream here is showcasing this, and many of you who watch me know that I'm all about just kind of that we're going to go with it attitude, but this is what we're doing. We are here to be listening. We are listening. And, you know, how do we improve? How do we get better at things? By listening and taking in that feedback and having conversations. And now you've got more avenues to do it. I mean, you mentioned like the forums and things, and we still have all of those. You, of course, have Twitter, you have Adobe Care, you have all these other things, but now via the betas, you really have this direct connection. And I myself, I mean, I've had random, very esoteric things that I've stumbled upon that some of the engineers have said, wow, that's a workflow we wouldn't have tried. Great bug find. And, you know, within the next few weeks, it was checked in and it was already fixed by the time we did our July release or whatever. So just want to emphasize to everyone watching again that this is something very, very, very special and very unique to us. It really is. And this is such a great opportunity to really engage and meet everybody out there. A lot of comments here around lighting and hair. Thank you, Michelle and Carrie. Oh, sorry, Matt, go ahead.
I was going to say, we don't give Jason any special treatment. His bugs go in the pile with everyone.
That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. No special treatment whatsoever. No, but in all seriousness, so this is great. And we're seeing a lot of, again, you're going to saying here, this is fabulous. Keep up the excellent work. You know, it's really, you know, I think one of the things too that I love that the two of you wanted to come on today as well is that, you know, personalizing this app, and I've said this a lot, our apps are not faceless. It's not, I mean, many may see us as kind of a machine. Hey, we're a big company, but there's humans doing this, right? There's humans involved. There's product managers, there's marketing people, there's sales people, there's QE, there are evangelism. There's all these different facets of the business that really, you know, as much as we can, we try to engage externally, but you just don't see this everywhere. And there are real people and faces tied to these things. And like Marjorie, you were saying, you know, coming from the Hollywood world and kind of seeing that inspired you to want to come here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, because you could see that there's an actual connection. It's not just the machine. It's human. And
I really empathize, you know, if I get an email or, you know, a bug, and when somebody is down and they can't work and they're stuck, like it's not just affecting that one person, it's affecting, you know, all the other assistants, the post team, everyone involved. So I really empathize with that. And, you know, I feel the pain too. I've been in that seat before.
Right. And I think that's also key and core to like the successes of the things we've been able to do, especially in the department you're working, is that you've been there, you've done it, right? You've seen it, you know it firsthand. again, it happens to me occasionally on the stream. Everything's smooth, and then maybe it isn't for a moment.
Yeah.
It happens,
Yeah.
and it's happening. I was saying with my children in distance learning, surprise, they've had some Zoom overload issues. What are you going to do? So, hey, so just on this, coming back to a little bit around acceleration and stuff, Matt and Marjorie. So Mark Real asks, and again, I think this is maybe we could clear this up a little. Is there now an AMD hardware acceleration? So this is, again, a question that I get because people are very familiar with, like, we've had CUDA for a long time, and that was specific to NVIDIA. And there's kind of been this thought that, oh, well, we don't do anything if you've got AMD hardware, but that isn't the case. So maybe you could talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, NVIDIA does a lot of good marketing with CUDA, and so that gets a lot of attention. But as far as we're concerned, we want to support all the GPUs out there, so that's from both ends. So I'm actually not aware of any modern features that were CUDA specific or even CUDA first. It's usually, we look at it as GPU acceleration, and that means both. So to break it down at a really high level, if you want to talk about Mac versus Windows, on Mac, the answer is just yes, we support it. And that's just kind of because Apple takes care of abstracting some of that away. So we just kind of tell Mac OS, let's use the hardware the best we can. And Mac OS handles, is it an NVIDIA card? Is it AMD? Is it the T2 chip? All of that. So that's kind of handled for us. On the Windows side, we get a little bit more explicit control. And so we do have support for both AMD and NVIDIA when it comes to GPU acceleration and the hardware accelerated encoding as well. So yes.
Love that. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, and it's funny because I think a lot of times, especially in various communities, when you hear about people's configurations, and look, everybody kind of has their thing that they may love. They don't have necessarily the experience is the wrong word, but the breadth of hardware and things that we go through and test through to know like what they're capable of, So really important that you made that point there. Also, very nice comment from Carrie Michelle just now. Adobe has always been a company of the people. Very nice. Very true. Very, very warm feeling. Thank you for that. We certainly, we endeavor to be, and that's what I'm trying to bring to you on our daily live streams and our master classes. And that's why we're here today. So we've got a couple more minutes. And I see, and hello, Ryan Brown. Hello, Joost, coming to us from the Netherlands. Very nice to see you. Got Manish is here
Jason.
as well. Hey, yes, Matt.
Before we leave talking about the public beta, I wanted to bring up something too that I'm really proud that we've been working on. We've heard from before we had a public beta, we had some private beta testers, and it was always a sticking point to them to worry about upgrading your project version if you were trying out the new Premiere, and then once you did that, you couldn't take your project backwards. And so it made it hard to kind of commit to giving it a real shake. One thing you may not have noticed is that all of Premiere 14 or Premiere 2020 projects have been compatible across versions. Yes. If this was in the old school, that would have been a new project format for 14.0, 14.1, 14.2. And so we've made a commitment, in response to that feedback from people that it's frustrating to deal with that. And so that's not to say we won't ever have a breaking change. It may be necessary, but we've prioritized not breaking it as often. And so that makes testing the beta even easier, because not only can it install next to the shipping version of Premiere, but you can bring your project back and forth.
Right, which is huge. And again, this is something that I think a lot of people they've experienced in After Effects that we've had for some time, right? Kind of being able to, although I guess it's a save back, it's slightly different, but having some kind of backwards forwards compatibility. And that's absolutely been certainly among the top 10 requests on my streams for the last several years is when are we going to see something like this? So this is huge. This is a huge addition and an awesome mention as well. Oh, Bruce Bullis is here. Wow, we really got a huge array of Adobe peeps in the chats today. I'm very impressed. Thank you, Eric, for putting this together. So as I was saying, we've got about 10 more minutes. Were there anything in particular, Matt? Oh, I know, Marjorie, you wanted to show a little bit of.
Oh yeah, I would love to share a feature that I'm very excited about. It's scene edit detection. It is available now in the beta build. And this, again, like having been an assistant myself, something that you would always spend so much time on is, say you have, like, you're doing a rip or cutting together a sizzle reel and you're using a lot of source footage, which I'm imagining a lot of people are doing now since production is kind of at a halt right now. Everyone's using sourced footage. So if you have a clip that's, like a master or final, or even this works well for if you have a VAM that you're editing from. And I hope I don't get in trouble for using this. But here is an animated film. And I'm just going to take a part of it, but it has a lot of different cuts involved in it. It has some dissolves. And let me cut it into the timeline here. And with scene edit detection, we will automatically detect the cut points at the frame. So to do that, it's simply you just right click it, go up to scene edit detection, and you have a couple different options here. So you can add a cut point, and then you can make a bin with all the sub clips from each of these cut points, or you can add a clip marker instead of adding a cut to your to the clip in the timeline. So let's go ahead and just simply add a cut at each detected cut point and create a bin of sub clips. I'm going to analyze, and it does it fairly fast.
Of course, dependent on length of the clip that you're.
Yeah. So this clip, this is a little over 30 seconds. I wasn't timing it, but I think it's pretty quick. So here we go.
Nice.
Yeah. I want to point out too a little bit about the in relation to the speed there and what's actually happening. This is one of our Adobe Sensei features, which uses our machine learning algorithms and technology. So there's a dedicated team working on those kind of features on Premiere. And rather than just, you could imagine a sort of more basic approach to this kind of problem would be just, how much percent has the frame changed from the one before it, right? And
like
that's
using
kind
a
of a basic way to handle it.
analysis or something like that.
Yeah.
And one of our competitors uses something similar.
I didn't say that. You brought that up.
Absolutely.
And that can work, and it can work, maybe more quickly, but then that leaves you having to fix a lot more in most cases. Right. There are some examples of where that kind of thing would fall down, which our machine learning model will catch. For example, if your footage hasn't been graded yet and it's kind of washed out, the pixels aren't changing very much even on a cut, but our machine learning model is looking at what's in the frame and still able to detect a cut. So, it might take a hair longer than some other methods, but you're going to get generally better results that you don't have to tweak as much.
Nice. Seen a lot of things in here. Sensei magic. And yes, thank you. A couple people are asking if the Sensei analysis done in the cloud or local. And thank you, Bruce, chimed in that it's, of course, local. Couple questions here. It's kind of a little bit off topic, but or maybe you can speak to this a bit about Mogert performance in Premiere versus After Effects. And Roland Cullenberg, who frequents a lot of my streams, was saying that interactive performance for AE Mogerts in Premiere Pro is about 5 to 10% of what it is in AE. Can you speak to that at all? I have to admit that performance-wise, for me, it seems fairly similar. But again, maybe it's because I'm aware of what I need to do to make it about the same. Is there anything in particular you could talk to about that, either one of you?
Matt?
I can't say anything too specifically about it. There's a whole other team that handles our graphics engine, whether it's in Premiere or After Effects or with motion graphics templates. Yeah. And they might have a better answer for that. One of them might be in the chat. But I will just say that we know that that's, you can kind of hit a road bump when you hit those kind of things, because essentially what's happening is it's the engine and the underlying, code and stuff of After Effects being piped into Premiere in real time. And so that is more for the computer to do to get that into Premiere's timeline than if you're just working in After Effects. So, we would love it to be just as performant as well. And so we have a team that works on that directly. So they'll definitely hear your feedback on that.
Yeah. Another great opportunity there, Roland, to submit some of those things from within the beta and know that it's going to get in front of people's eyes right away. So yeah, I wanted to bring that up. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you that one, but I just figured we'd bring that up out there. As I said, I'm not going to throw you any of those. I just saw one that just seemed too good to pass up. Okay, just going through some of the last couple of questions here. All right. Oh, and I see we've already got someone saying from the graphics team, they're going to reach out to Roland. Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome.
Love this. We've got so many. Ahmed is asking, is scene edit detection a new feature? Yes. So it's currently in the beta. So you can access it right now from CC Desktop. Just look for the beta app downloads. You can grab it and you could begin playing around with it. And it's awesome. Dacia is in as well. Annika is in as well.
Too, Jason, if you don't want to commit, full time to I'm going to work in the beta, You can take your existing project, open it in the beta, do your scene edit detection, close the beta, and open it right back in your shipping version.
Yeah. So cool. All right, now just on that, so I know Matt, you wanted to show some launch time, a launch time demo comparison, and this is one of those things. Oh, let me get Marjorie out of there. This is one of those things where we were like, do we want to show this? Maybe it's not going to launch as fast. It launched super fast yesterday, maybe not today. No, we're going to go for it.
Go live.
So maybe you could just explain what we're going to see here. I'll wait to add you until you've got things up and ready.
Yeah, I think I'm ready to go.
Okay.
One of the big things that we focus on, and it's especially hits home for me because I launch Premiere very often, many times throughout the day, is that as the application has become more complex, the launch time is taking longer, and we love it if it's one of those things when you step back and think about it. If we can shave off 1 or 2 seconds of the launch time across millions of users, that's a lot of human effort and time saved, right?
Right.
And so we're really excited to take this on and make a big dent actually in not only the biggest wins are when you first launch Premiere after a new install or after doing an update. That was where we sort of were least performance in terms of launching. But those changes we made actually do ripple down even to subsequent launches. So it's true to say that across the board, the latest version of Premiere launches more quickly than any recent version before it.
Nice.
So,
all right.
For my demo here, I've got I have just installed via the Creative Cloud app clean versions of the current one, 14.3.2, which just went out last night, and 13.1.5, which was the last version of the 2019 version of Premiere. So I have installed those, but never launched them. So what we're going to see is when I first launch them, macOS is going to do a little security check. I'm going to start the clock after that, but that also is just kind of proof that it's a clean install. So I'm going to click 2019, give it a second here.
Which we can tell by the different icon. That's right. Yeah.
Yep. So macOS is doing its little check. And go. So one of the key areas that we've been able to make this improvement here is if you've ever watched Premiere launch, you know that there's a lot of funnily named plugins. Some you might recognize, some you might not.
Right.
This was a big area of improvement. So we've been able to look at, for the plugins that already come with Premiere, we found a way to essentially sort of cache those or sort of preload them in such a way that even on the very first launch, because we know those came with Premiere, those are essentially already ready to go. And a lot of other technical stuff way even lower down than I can understand that I just sort of look and smile at when the engineers tell me about what they did there. All right, so I'm going to wait till the home screen comes up. We'll call it there. So we'll call that a 44-second launch.
Okay, so that's fair. That's legit. That's pretty much what I would say most people have experienced. Okay, yeah.
And here is Premiere Pro 2020 version 14.3.2.
Okay.
One more time, we're going to wait for macOS to give me the go-ahead.
Matt Stegner is also pointing out that third-party audio effects scanning is also faster in the latest version. I can definitely attest to that as well.
Absolutely.
All right.
Look at those plugins fly by.
That's right. What?
And we're done.
Boom.
So even if we round up, we'll call that 13 seconds. So that's faster than twice, more than twice as fast on our launch times there. So that makes a huge difference for every user of Premiere around the world.
That's awesome. That's awesome. See, Matt? Go for it. Nothing, buddy. All right. So that was awesome. And this is, so now, by the way, so that was in the current version of Premiere that you can get now, right? So
yeah.
I know there's always a little bit of trepidation when people are like mid-project or something. So just on that, let me ask the two of you. I mean, I know I've said it, and of course, like many, I'm a bit more conservative. I don't necessarily update during projects and things, but what are your thoughts on something like that in general? Like if it's just, we've done bug fixes, you're mid-project, would you do it? Would you update? What are your thoughts on doing that kind of stuff?
So I've found that what started out as a good sort of safe rule of thumb about, if things are working and you're in the middle of a big project that you're earning money for, maybe don't add risk to your thing. Right. That is absolutely true, but that has morphed over time into I think, sort of just an all-encompassing fear of updating.
Right.
And I've seen it sometimes online mentioned as if we don't test updating projects, but we absolutely do. Every single release that go out, we have a library of past projects that it's someone's job to open those, make sure nothing broke. So there's very rarely going to be just a brick wall you hit upon trying to do that. So I think it's a little bit of both. Don't add risk if you can't handle something going wrong, but at the same time, it's not like we at Adobe are just washing our hands and saying, well, you shouldn't have updated. We do support updating an existing project to the next version. So I think you can just keep that in mind.
All right, I like that. That's a balanced answer. Marjorie, did you have any thoughts on that too?
Yeah. So my old self I was, one of those fearful people. I've been burned in the past where it's not working, but that was so many years ago. And, now working directly on the software, I'm so confident when I tell people, go ahead and upgrade. Like, why are you in these old versions? You're just making your life so much more difficult, and you're going to save so much time because we've added all these improvements. So it's the benefits definitely far outweigh the consequences. But like Matt mentioned, if you're doing something coming from like 13 and you're going to go all the way to 14, you just need to be mindful of some of our effects now are like obsolete. Some titles, if you're using the titler, or some different audio effects. But yeah, go for it.
Nice.
Another thing on that point that I think is important to know, and you won't know unless you work at Adobe, is that we have reorganized a lot of our team over the last year, and we've had some new great management come on to say, hey, here's how we can improve our quality. And that has led to a whole different mindset from even when I started in 2017 about what needs to happen if new code is put into the app before it makes it out even to just the beta. And so in that way, that will lead to more overall stability and less accidental things that make it out. And I've definitely seen that just in my own personal interaction with engineers over the last year. So that's the inside of what's backing up our confidence in saying, you're just less likely to hit those kind of big problems updating than you used to.
What about in terms of OS updates? Now, I'm not saying, and again, I'd be the first to say, don't update your OS mid-project. But I've been getting a lot of questions from people, especially on the Mac side, and Yoast is asking this one: any benefits? So benefits here using Mac OS 15 over 14, and I get this a lot with like Windows 10. And is there any particular Windows 10 version that's better, or older versions? And I would assume you sort of, if you can, you want to be current for a variety of reasons. But are there any benefits to using, I just moved from Mojave myself not long ago, dragging my feet for a while. But it was mostly waiting for third-party plugins and things to support the OS. So are there any particular benefits for us jumping ahead in like latest OS versions right now?
Some of the biggest stuff you'll see that affects Premiere from OS version to OS version is usually actually around like things like hardware acceleration, things where the OS is something that we're talking to directly. When you add an edit in a timeline, Premiere doesn't have to go talk to the operating system; it just does it. But when Premiere says, "I need to use the T2 chip in your Mac to like encode this video," it's a conversation with the operating system.
Right.
And so for those kind of things, I remember specifically. Can't remember if it was going to High Sierra or going to Mojave, was a big performance boost in the metal hardware acceleration that we were able to use, and that was a measurable difference that we would recommend you update to. I don't know of anything like that in Catalina, other than I was just talking to an engineer today about the scene edit detection Marjorie showed, and actually there are improvements in Catalina to the machine learning stuff that Apple provides in the OS that we use for that. That does make it's not so much that it's going to be like 3 times faster, but if he had his way, we would only use that new stuff, and we have to also support it in the older OSs. So that kind of stuff can also be affected from OS to OS.
Awesome. All right. Well, as I'm looking through here, I'm trying to find any last minute questions. Seems like everyone on our team has been answering all this stuff. So I'll tell you what, I think we're going to call it here, friends. And I want to thank Marjorie and Matt for joining me. Thank you so much, really, both of you, just for being so open and honest with everyone, and sharing your time and spending your time and introducing yourselves to the larger online communities. I know many of you have met us at various shows and things back when we did stuff in person. So maybe one of these days we'll get to do it again. But until then, as always, listen, you have lots of different ways where you can communicate with us. Don't forget our classic ways of doing that, Adobe Care and our forums. Also really want to emphasize grabbing some of those betas. Again, new ways to give direct feedback, commentary, and submit feature requests for the video and audio apps. So powerful. And of course, you can always reach me and my colleagues on our various Twitter and Facebook platforms. Now, of course, we are one Adobe Video on Facebook, and Adobe Video representing Premiere, After Effects, Audition, Character Animator, and Media Encoder on the Twitter side as well. So for the three of us, thank you so much. You'll be able to watch the replays, of course, on all of the various networks. If you have any additional questions, hit me up on Twitter @BeetleJace. So until next time, have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you again next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.